Hey there. I wanted to reply to one of the questions that I received from a video that I made yesterday on forgive and forgive again, the let it go. I wanted to reference Zip Zap 22. You asked a really good question, and I wanted to just respond to it through a video so that not only you could see it, so that others could see it, because I believe this is a question that's probably asked by many people. I've even asked it myself, so I completely understand your question. And your question was, what do you do when someone keeps reopening the wound and keeps spreading rumors that's not true, and you haven't talked to them in over 20 years? But they still continue, that was their question, and yet they still continue to lie on you. And the very first thing I would say is forgive and forgive again. Although it's very painful, there are moments where you forgive and then you find out that they've done something else, and it's like they reopen that wound again, and I fully understand that. Like, I've lived through that too. But there are little tidbits, the things that I do personally, and I'll just share them with you guys. But first off, I want to go to Matthew 18, 21 and 22, and I'm reading from the Passion Version. And it says, let me get to it. Later, Peter approached Jesus and said, "How many times do I have to forgive my fellow believer who keeps offending me? 7 times? He probably thought in that moment, okay, it's just 7 times, and then after the 7th time, it is on. We throwing hands, or I can say what I want to say. Peter probably thought like that because Peter kind of had a temper and kind of had a mouth. I can relate to Peter so well. Anyway, but not so. Jesus answered him and he said, "Not 7 times, Peter." I can just imagine Peter was like, dang. But 70 times 7. And so forgive and forgive again. That's the answer. When someone continues to offend, it's forgive and forgive again. Now, there's a difference between being hurt and having unforgiveness. I mean, just because you are still hurting doesn't necessarily mean that you haven't forgiven. So that hurt, that gets healed in time. But as long as you have the mindset that you don't have your hand on their throat anymore, you don't want to harm them, or you don't want to retaliate, or you don't want anything bad on them, that's when, and you can pray for them, easily pray for them and pray for them to really be blessed. I'm sorry, my dog is in the background squeaking her toy. But if you really want to just, know that you have forgiven, look at those areas. Can I pray for them? Can I truly want God to bless them? Or is it just that I'm still hurting? So sometimes the hurt takes time to be healed, but the forgiveness can take place instantly because it's a choice. And this year, actually, God has been talking to me a lot about it's a choice. It's your choice. We can blame the enemy. We can blame God. We can blame man. But ultimately, it is a choice that we make whether we want to forgive or not. And sometimes we feel like it's almost impossible to forgive because we're so hurt. But remember, there's a difference between the hurt and unforgiveness. The hurt sometimes takes a little bit longer to heal. But the forgiveness or unforgiveness portion really should be instant. The healing is a process. I hope that makes sense. And another thing you need to ask yourself too is the person that is doing all the lying and spreading things about me that's not true, you need to ask yourself, is this person saved or not? If the person is not saved, then you just need to go ahead and expect it. An unsaved person is only going to respond and act out of their flesh, which Christians do too, but you really expect it from an unsaved person. You don't put them on the same level, which we probably should. That's a whole other lesson I'm going to get into later. But, just remember that an unsaved person, to expect them to not lie, not gossip, not cheat, not do the things against God's word. Like it's expected for an unsaved person to not think of others first and to lie and do those things. So it's almost like it helps you as the person that's being offended go, you know what? They're only doing what they know to do. And we can even say that about Christians. Jesus hanging on the cross, he said, Father, forgive them for they know not what they do. And that's really the mindset that we should stay in. It's not easy, but that is the mindset that we should stay in. Father, forgive them for they know not what they do. Because a lot of times, Christian or not, the person can be influenced by many, many things. And the offender can be influenced by so many things. And it causes them to respond in ways that are hurtful. And so we need to say to God, Father, forgive them for they know not what they do. Another tidbit that I do when things like this happen, I try to instantly, not every time I do it, but I try to instantly go straight to saying, I love whoever it is, this person. I refuse to be offended with this person. I refuse to allow what they said or did to get into my emotions and cause me to respond in a way that's ungodly. I refuse to backbite. I refuse to talk about it. I've not mastered that completely. God's still working on me too. But that's a great way to look at it is I'm going to choose to not be offended. I choose to not allow this offense to hinder my love for them, because that's what it boils down to. When we love, we love. And we think about Jesus with Judas. Jesus knew that Judas was going to betray him, and yet he still kissed him, received a kiss by him, and he washed his feet. Come on. Jesus knew Judas was going to betray him, sat at the Last Supper and talked about it, or at the table and talked about it. And Judas said, is it I? When Jesus mentioned about there will be someone to betray him, he said, is it I? And Jesus said, it's recorded in Matthew, you said it. They knew. And so Judas was the betrayer. Jesus knew it, and yet he treated him no differently. Man, if we could ever get to that place, talk about mastering humility. When you know that you know the person in front of you is going to betray you or has betrayed you, and yet you treat them no differently, man, I think if we can all get to that place, we'd be in a better world, and it would truly teach us what humility really means. So, great question. I understand why you ask it, because I've had to go through that too, but just saying that I refuse to be offended. I refuse to allow something to hinder my love for this person, because when we get offended, our love can become hindered, and it can become hindered with that person. It can become hindered with other people who didn't even hurt you. And so we have to be very, very careful, because God is love and we are designed to love because we are made in his image. So I hope that encouraged you. I hope that answered your question, and thanks for the question. Y'all be blessed.